understand Kennerly. I mean, here's this really a very attractive woman. He's like, whoa, she's good looking, you know. Didn't have a clue who she was.
I had none.
Like, dude,
all I knew that she was a babe.
Dude, that's Beyonce. That's what he said. Dude, that's Beyonce.
Yeah, that trained photographer's eye said, that's somebody worth looking at. All right. Hold on a sec. I need my second set of glasses there. Here we go. Okay. Is there written documentation of all the pictures taken?
Well, there's a librarian that works with the material. There is a date, all the contact sheets and the material, of course, now is digital. Eric would have to answer the digital part. All of our film was turned in throughout the day, and it went into contact sheets, of course, when we shot film, color or black and white, all dated. And then there was a librarian and picture editors who put caption material on it and listed who the people were to a certain extent. If it was a large group, it wouldn't have everybody in it. But yeah, there's a wonderful historical record. I mean, it's one of the joys of that job is to know this material is all preserved so well and all so well documented.
Yeah, I know in my situation, we used to get a monthly block schedule, a weekly schedule, and then a daily schedule. And the daily schedule was pretty much minute by minute. And so if you were in a meeting in the Oval Office and someone else walked in, that was enough reason to go back in and start shooting all over again. But it also meant that I would write down on I was shooting film, on my film envelope, Howard Baker walked in. And so then the photo librarian over in the old executive office building inputted that into a database, and you know, now the archives, you know, you gotta love those folks, keep all that stuff for history. So it's great to be
Eric.
Yeah, my 8 years was the conversion from film to digital, which actually the first digital archive actually started during the last couple of years of Clinton, right?
Right. That's 3 4 years.
And so what I tried to do was take it even further, because the fact that, you know, digital was the future, and doing that conversion was a really big job, actually, because of just the volume. So, but the Bush years is actually, it's the first 100% digital archive from start to finish. So there's a database that has information, metadata. We have an archivist, I think the same archivist who worked for both of them.
Janet Phillips.
Yeah, she's been there for a long time. And she's wonderful at adding, enriching the archive with information about the meetings, and working with the White House diarist, adding names, rooms, all the information possible to actually, you put in a search and find exactly what you're looking for.
A question for Eric. Do you have access to all those million photos? Yeah, I can. If I paid a visit, you know, I can, you know, sit down and do a search, and it's all there. It's a lot of pictures, and you know, just so you know, also even during the film days, every frame was scanned into digital form, and that's one way during that transition. But yeah, it was a really big job to manage that many photos, because at the end of 8 years, I nearly took 1 million, but the entire archive was over 3 million pictures, and that's for the entire White House staff, including the Vice President. Did your finger get tired?
Actually, to be honest, I developed tendonitis in my arm just from from the motion, and you know, I went to see a doctor, and he's like, okay, well, you've heard of tennis elbow, you have camera elbow. So
you're just trying to document like a workers' comp case there?
Exactly. So now I'm on the record, right?
Okay. This is for everybody, start with David. Comment on the percent of posed versus candid photographs.
You know, I think the only posed photo was the one of the 5 presidents, and it wasn't posed.
That was the first time that 5 presidents ever been photographed.
So I hear.
Yeah. You know, because I literally said to President Bush, hey, could you turn around for a quick shot? And all the presidents turned, and it was just that quick before David ever shot his photo.
We got
Just
that.
in case you didn't get that the first time you said it up there.
The thing is, one of the things that you do have to do as White House photographer is, and I worked, as I said, I loved black and white, but I always did carry SLR with color film at that point.
Canon cameras, by the way.
Yeah, Canon. For handshake pictures, it's one of the big things you do. I mean, and one of the things that you actually come in handy for. I mean, the president's going down a rope line. Somebody says, "Oh, can I have a picture with you?" Well, you know, you can just turn and do it. But the deal now is, of course, everybody has their own camera, and the transformation for me, which is extraordinary, since I started, as I said, politics in 1972, to go into a room or an event, a political event, and the only people with cameras were the professional photographers. They were there to take pictures. Now you go to a political event, every single person in the room has a camera, whether it's a cell phone, and they're all busy taking pictures. You'll have your candidates start down the road to shake hands. There's nobody to shake hands with. They're all busy. They're all doing this, man, and he's like trying to, it's just hilarious to me that, but when the idea of posed, I mean, there's a lot of posed pictures because you go into a meeting and they want to, let's have a picture, In fact, I mean, if David didn't bring it up, I will myself. The first time I ever photographed Monica Lewinsky during the government shutdown. She's in there working. The president says, "Bob, get a picture of me and this intern."
Get two.
Get two.
Yeah,
and he turned, and actually Ken Starr was interested in that picture too.
I bet he was.
But there is a lot of posed pictures. You do posed pictures. But it's part
receiving
of the function.
lines.
Tons of receiving lines. Christmas, thousands. I mean, Christmas parties, hundreds of thousands of posed pictures, and it's just part of what you do. I mean, you're busy. It's almost reflexively.
No, it's part of what the staff does, actually.
Yeah, right. But
that's why we had all these other photographers working for us.
Right. Well,
I didn't like doing receiving lines or windows, and so I
what would you do with windows?
No, I don't do windows. But everybody needs a picture with the president whenever possible. So the best way to do it is just sort of this, coming through. You've all done it, having your picture taken. The person who's like brilliant at it is Barack Obama. I've never seen anybody who looks so good in every single frame. Because I did at Texas A&M when they had that event with 41 and Barack Obama, and there were like 20 friends of the thing, and I shot it backstage, and he looked the same in every picture, and he looked great. It was like, he's really happy to be here with this person having their picture taken. I mean, I can't believe that he was.
It's a skill. It's a politician.
Yeah, it's very good. I mean, it's an acting job.
Yeah. Photo ops are just a really large part of being the official White House photographer, or this delegating to the staff. But it's an important part too, because it's having that photo of someone meeting the president means so much to that person. For example, that you can hang on their wall in their homes for years and years. And President Bush loved posing for photos, so he really kept me busy a lot and he loved to personally sign the images and send them back. And that was his way of thanking the person. And he really he signed hundreds and hundreds of pictures. And like Robert just touched on the receiving lines around Christmas time, which is like the busiest time of year with all the Christmas parties and everyone who comes through. And so like a Christmas party for the president and the first lady is standing in a room for 3 hours shaking hands and posing for photos. And every president does it, and it's a huge part of the job.
This one, we could start with Valdez. What were the reactions you saw from crowds, people in different countries that you visited, reactions to the president?
Well, when...
It's like stocking a pond, though, isn't it, with fish?
Yeah, I mean, probably one of the more exciting times was after we left the presidency and the Emir of Kuwait invited him to Kuwait, and I was lucky enough to go on the trip. And
Did you get a gold watch?
Well, I was a civilian.
Kuwaitis could be very generous, actually.
I was a civilian at the time,
right.
and yeah.
I was just kidding. I wish I would have gone on the trip.
They all got gold watches.
We never, whenever we went with former President Ford anywhere, it wasn't that good. So, sorry.
Yeah.
What about?
I mean, but I also remember the last day he was president, and we went out on the South Lawn, and there were a lot of tourists out there, and it was literally, it was probably 10 o'clock that morning on Inauguration Day, and some of the tourists were out there saying, "We love you, Mr. President. We're going to miss you, Mr. President," and it was an interesting dynamic and interaction. So when we were in Warsaw, and we had 1 million people come out who were experiencing freedom for the first time, and that was a long process with President Reagan, and it happened on George Bush's watch. The fall of the Soviet Union and communism over, and then we're in Warsaw. It was an incredible reception. So the United States at that time certainly got a lot of positive reaction. If you look at South America, also at that period of time, there were a lot of countries for the first time going democratic, and when we would go visit those countries, it was the same kind of reaction.
Bob?
Yeah. No, Bill Clinton just loved crowds, so there was always that kind of, and he would just plunge into them, which was very hard on the Secret Service guys, but it was always like, at the end of an event, the joke was, he'd be chasing down that last person who was trying to get out of there to shake hands with him. Oh, wait, I didn't meet you. He just would always do that, which was, and the crowds were, but of course, like you say, it's a stock pond. They came to see him anyway, and on the foreign trips, like Ireland was those kind of things, those kind of trips. But Moscow, I can remember some times in Moscow when, he would just go out and go into the crowds and stuff like that, which is, but it's hard to do though too. I mean, obviously all of us are speaking about a pre-9/11 world. The world changed drastically. The Secret Service, the way you work at the White House, what you do, how you get in and out of there, and what goes on. I mean, it's two different worlds.
Actually, one of my enjoyable things as being a White House photographer is documenting that reaction from people, from crowds, like people along the motorcade routes, for example. And actually, it was great to see people waving with all 5 fingers. That was the best part. But I think my most favorite motorcade experience was actually the president's final trip to Africa, and to see the African, we went to Ghana, Tanzania, Liberia, and it was this incredible outpouring of, they're so thankful of the aid that they've received to fight malaria, to fight HIV/AIDS, and it's just incredible to see people in the streets in mass with signs and yelling and screaming, and I mean it's so exciting to ride through cities all over the world like that.
President Ford gave me extraordinary access, both the Oval and the second floor residence. Did the other presidents give this kind of access? Start with Eric.
Well,
actually, you can see.
It's. I mean, just like Robert said, every White House photographer has their relationship with their president, and it's different. I'm sure now it's different with Pete Souza and President Obama, and so that relationship, which actually evolves through time, because my job initially, I had to learn a lot about President Bush because I only knew him as a press photographer. I didn't work for him, and something that really shocked me when I worked for him is I really didn't know him until I worked for him to see the full picture. I had that much access to see, President Bush 43. As commander-in-chief, father, dog owner, all these parts of his life that I had access to. So it was truly an opportunity that's just unmatched.
I think David touched on it when he was talking about my relationship. The big governing thing there is a relationship with the First Lady. I mean, there really is two, you know, the East and West, or the Iron Curtain or whatever. I mean, the residents and the children. I mean, Eric had to deal with, you know, 2 teenage girls living up there, Chelsea Clinton. I mean, there was a sense of some privacy. I mean, I would go up with Clinton into the residence, because there is a working office up there, and he would make phone calls to foreign leaders, and if there was a meeting. But I was always reluctant. I mean, you'd come around the corner and Chelsea'd be there in her bathrobe, or Mrs. Clinton, you know, in the morning. Or actually one time on vacation, I think it was on Martha's Vineyard, he was going to be making a phone call, and I walked in Mrs. Clinton's bathrobe, and she looked at me and was like, "See you later." You know, I was like, you know, just out the door. You have to be really careful of that. I mean, they have to have a sense. And the second floor of the residence being the family. But, I mean, we did have it. I mean, you are able to do it, and you are able to shoot. But I think David's relationship, I mean, the classic line was, you know, he was always that extra son in the family. David, the troubled son.
The one they never wanted to talk about.
Yeah, the problem son.
Well, I spent all those years with Vice President Bush, and it was actually a lot more fun working for the Vice President, because it was a smaller group of people, so you get to know everybody more, and I think that really, really helped when he became president, because then all of a sudden there was a smaller group of insiders, for lack of a better word, and I was actually able to be a part of that, and you know, there was always that, well, you know, did you work on Vice President's staff? And if you were, then you were maybe a little closer. But you know, I think I told the story about Barbara Bush writing me that note about her grandchildren, and that really helped. So as I remember going to the hospital when Doro's son was born, and we were there, and you know, he wanted to see his grandson for the first time, and the nurses wouldn't let him into the nursery because the baby was just born, and so we were looking through the glass, and the Secret Service pushed the door open, and I leaned into the nursery and took a picture while the Vice President was distracting the nurse, and I got as soon as he saw me take the picture, he says, "Well, we got to go," and you know, being with them in the Bush family at births and at the death of his mother, you know, I really became a part of that whole thing, and really cherished that relationship.
Last question. Start with Eric. Your most memorable moment during your service as White House photographer?
Wow, that's a tough one. I'll tell you a story from actually day one, which actually could have been the worst moment for me, especially starting out as the new White House photographer. So there's a moment during the inauguration where the outgoing president says goodbye to the incoming president, and this happens on the steps of the Capitol, and this is in 2001. Clinton couldn't fly, like the helicopter. So he had a motorcade sitting there. And so when that moment happened, for some reason, I switched the AP mode or something, you know, and I ended up following the Clinton people to their motorcade. And it gets worse. And I end up actually in a van.
You got in the
And yeah, I was sitting in the van.
What were you thinking?
I don't know. That's what I said to myself.
It's like Pavlovian. It's like, motorcade, gotta catch the motorcade.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just like, I was still learning. You know, there's a lot to learn. Well, anyway, luckily, I heard this voice from behind me, and there's actually, he was on your staff, Ralph Alswain.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And if any of you know him, he has a very dry sense of humor. And he said behind me, I just heard his voice. He said, "Eric, your guy is staying." And I was very lucky that the door didn't close.
Oh my God.
And I just bolted out of the car, and I saw the President and Mrs. Bush walking up the stairs, and I caught up like nothing happened.
That's Great story.
Well, actually,
Robert.
just the other side of that, Ralph, his point was, you know, you leave for Ralph, he left the White House that morning, a White House photographer in the motorcade, really important, and he walked home from the Capitol. You know, you're let out, they dropped off President Clinton to go, and then you're on your own. It's just, you know, it's no more. The pin's gone. I mean, I think that's the not one specific moment, but I think every day working at the White House, I mean, I can just, you know, as it was happening, I felt I had a fairly clear understanding of how ephemeral it was. It wasn't permanent. You want it to be permanent in a way as a photographer. I mean, I'd get up in the morning and drive down to the White House, go through the gate, you know, be waved through the gate, park on West Exec right next to the entrance to the West Wing, get out of the car, walk into my office in the basement of the West Wing, pick up 3 or 4 Leicas, you know, all sitting there, grab some film out of a drawer, look at the pictures from yesterday that I shot or whatever, and walk into the Oval Office. And there was the President of the United States and the Vice President or whatever visiting dignitary, and start taking pictures. I mean, it's as that kind of ease to work is unknown in the world, you know. I mean, not just to be able to do that and make meaningful pictures, and to have that freedom to focus and to build on that. You say what was the best moment? The moments build, and they create an ability to create pictures that actually have meaning beyond just that. And I think for Eric, the reason to take the job, I mean, AP, it's a wonderful job, but you're only hitting like different things all over the world for one day. This job is a day in, day out opportunity to create a picture that's kind of meaningful beyond the fact that it's Bush 41 or Clinton 42 or Obama 44. It's about America, and it's about American history and what the record is. So it's an ongoing process. Every day is the best day of your life shooting there.
I remember being with President Bush, and this happened several times, and we'd be going into some palace somewhere or into the Kremlin, and you know, he'd kind of hit me with his elbow, and he'd say, "Can you believe these 2 guys from Texas are coming in here doing this?" You know, and it was interesting because he was always in awe of the presidency, and he knew he was a temporary employee there, and so he wanted to maintain the dignity of the presidency, and so there were several times when I would find myself maybe alone in the Oval Office for a few moments, and I'd stop and say, you know, I can't believe that it's me here. And on Inauguration Day, when President Clinton was sworn in, I left with former President Bush, and we went down to Houston, and then I flew back on the 747 that at one time was the Air Force One when the president's on. It's Air Force One when he's not. It's not. And so we flew back to Andrews, and I still had my White House cameras, and I still had my Secret Service pen and that stuff. And so I went into Bob's office and you know, left my stuff, and the lights were on, and I symbolically turned the light switch off and left the West Exec there for the last time, and it was interesting. The next day I did an interview on Today's Show with Bryant Gumbel, and you know, he was kind of asking me what was going on, and you know, how things were going, and it was kind of the first moment that I realized, gee, I don't work for the President of the United States anymore, and I can actually say anything I want to say. And so you know, I was looking for my hire me sign so I could put up on
We'll work for photos.
Yeah, we'll work for photos. But you know, it's like Bob was saying, every day was just amazing, and I was always amazed that I had that opportunity, and you know, it's one of those things that we'll all have for the rest of our lives, and we've contributed to history, and it's great to be a part of that history that will live on and on.
I think there were so many memorable moments, certainly, but one that I particularly recall was when President Ford went campaigning for the last 2 weeks in '76, and then we were up in the White House residence until 2 o'clock in the morning, and Dick Cheney was up there smoking cigarettes, and so was I. And you could see that it was going to be over with, and there was Jake Javits and Cheney and the president in this one room where it really became clear that he was going to lose. And so he went to bed, and I got up really early again, like 2 or 3 hours later. But I was in the Oval Office when Ford had he was hoarse because he'd been campaigning so hard, and so he could barely talk. And we got Jimmy Carter on the phone, and Dick Cheney was sitting in another chair and actually read the statement. He croaked something to Carter, congratulations, and then Cheney read the concession statement, and then went out in the press room, and Mrs. Ford actually read that statement to the press, and the president was standing there, and then he went down and shook hands with the press people, and I and President Ford and Terry O'Donnell, who was the other person that spent probably the most time with the president than anybody, the two of us walked back into the Oval Office, and the president put his arm around Terry and said, Terry, I don't even think I've told you what a great job you've done for me, and you know, if there's anything I can do for you to help you out after you leave here. And you know, Terry's got tears streaming down his face, and so do I, trying to take the pictures of this. And it just occurred to me that the kind of guy who would be thinking about someone else, and probably one of the worst days of his life in terms of a political goal that was not reached, was so indicative of his personality. And it's why I had such an amazing time working there, that I was working for such a good person who I never heard made a racist comment, never made a disparaging comment of any severe nature about anybody, really. And he was such a good example to me and the country, and that was the moment that comes to me. So, thank you very much.
I think Eileen's going to just say something real quick.
And for the ladies.
And for the gentlemen, even those who happen to work for presidents and with presidents who were wonderful in their own way, but maybe not as wonderful as the one we're honored to represent. We have a pair of pens for each of you with the signature of Gerald R. Ford.
Wonderful.
And we hope you will use them in good health and with
Wow.
wonderful memories of your
Thank
visit to
you.
the Ford Museum.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, very, very nice.
So, if anybody's interested, we're going to go out and sign some books out there. If anybody
Sure.
wants to buy,
Yeah.
I don't make a dime from those, by the way. So.
We have copies of David Kennerly's book, Extraordinary Circumstances.
I'm the son of a salesman, by the way. So.
As if we couldn't tell.